Hei-Wan walked through the empty corridors of Station Kefir with her scanner in hand. She was a xenobiologist, which meant her job was to study alien life forms and understand how they worked. The station was a busy place, with many different ships coming and going every day. Today was supposed to be a routine inspection of the cargo bay, nothing special, nothing dangerous. She had done this same job 100 times before. The cargo bay was dimly lit when she arrived. Rows of containers were stacked high, casting long shadows across the metal floor. Hei-Wan moved between them slowly, checking her scanner for any signs of life or damage. The scanner showed everything was normal. No problems, no issues, just empty space and quiet air. Then she heard something. It was a small sound, almost like a whimper. Hei-Wan stopped and listened carefully. The sound came again, this time a little louder. It was coming from behind a large metal container near the back corner of the bay. Hei-Wan's heart began to beat faster. Something was back there, something living. She moved toward the sound slowly, keeping her body low and calm. Safety protocols said she should call for backup before investigating anything unknown, but Hei-Wan had always trusted her instincts more than protocols. She had worked with aliens before, and most of them were not as dangerous as people thought. Most of them were just trying to survive, just like humans. When she turned the corner, she saw it. A small creature sat huddled against the wall, its body shaking. It was a Valtrax cub, no more than 3 or 4 years old by human standards. The Valtrax were a feline-like species, tall and muscular when fully grown, but this one was tiny and fragile-looking. Its fur was a deep blue color with silver stripes, and its large eyes were dark and frightened. There was blood on its left front leg, and the cub was trying to lick the wound clean. Hei-Wan's first instinct was to call for help. The Valtrax were known as a proud and territorial species. They did not trust other races easily, and many humans were afraid of them. But looking at this small creature, so young and so hurt, Hei-Wan could not feel fear. She could only feel sadness and a desire to help. "It is okay," she said softly, speaking in the most gentle voice she could manage. "I will not hurt you. I am here to help." The cub's ears flicked backward in alarm. It tried to move away, but its injured leg would not obey. The creature cried out in pain and stopped trying to move. Instead, it watched Hei-Wan with wide, fearful eyes, ready to fight or run away if she came any closer. Hei-Wan did not move forward. Instead, she sat down on the floor, making herself smaller and less threatening. She kept her hands visible and her movements slow. In her career studying aliens, she had learned that fear could make any creature dangerous, no matter how small. The best approach was always to show that you meant no harm. "My name is Hei-Wan," she said quietly. "What is your name, little one?" The cub did not answer. It simply stared at her, breathing heavily. The wound on its leg was bleeding more now, and Hei-Wan knew the creature needed medical attention soon. But she could not force help on it. The cub had to choose to trust her, or she would have to call for backup, which might scare it even more. She reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out a bottle of water. She opened it and took a small sip, showing the cub that it was safe to drink. Then she poured a little bit into the cap and set it on the floor between them. The water sat there, shining in the dim light of the cargo bay. Time passed slowly. Minutes felt like hours. The cub watched the water, and Hei-Wan watched the cub. Neither of them moved. The cub was clearly in pain, and it was clearly scared, but it was also clearly thirsty and hungry. Finally, the creature's thirst won over its fear. It limped forward slowly, one painful step at a time, until it reached the water cap. It drank quickly, and the water disappeared in seconds. The cub looked up at Hei-Wan with slightly less fear in its eyes. "Good," Hei-Wan said softly. "You are very brave. Now I need to help your leg. It is hurt, and we need to make it better." Will you let me help you?" She reached into another pocket and pulled out a small medical kit. She had not expected to use it today, but HFY always carried one with her. She took out a clean cloth and some healing gel that would stop the bleeding and reduce pain. She moved forward very slowly, giving the cub every chance to run away. The cub did not run. It was too hurt, too tired, and perhaps it understood that HFY was trying to help. It sat still as she gently cleaned the wound and applied the healing gel. The creature made soft sounds, not quite pain and not quite comfort, something in between. "What is your name?" HFY asked again as she worked. "Can you tell me your name?" The cub made a sound, something that sounded like Kyle. It was a Valtrax word, HFY thought, though she was not completely sure. But she decided that would be the cub's name from that moment on. Kyle. "Kyle," she said softly. "My name is HFY. I am your friend now, Kyle. I will help you find your family. I promise you that." When she finished with the medical treatment, the cub was calmer. It was still frightened, still confused about where it was and why it was hurt, but it seemed to understand that HFY meant no harm. The creature made a soft purring sound, similar to earth cats, and leaned slightly against HFY's leg. HFY sat there with Kale for a long time. She called in a status report to the station, telling them she had found an injured alien cub in the cargo bay. The response was immediate. Her commander wanted her to quarantine the cub and call for a specialized team, but HFY asked for permission to care for Kale herself for now, just until they could find his family. "He is just a child," she said into her communication device. "He is scared and hurt. I can help him. Please." After a moment of silence, permission was granted. HFY was to bring Kyle to the medical bay and keep him under observation. She was to document everything and report any changes in the cub's condition. As HFY prepared to move Kyle, she realized that she had just made a decision that would change her life. She did not know it yet, and she could not see into the future. But in that quiet cargo bay, holding a small blue cub with silver stripes, HFY had taken the first step on a journey that would eventually teach her what it meant to truly love something from another world entirely. HFY sat in the station's medical bay, watching Kyle sleep peacefully on a recovery bed. The cub's wound had been treated with advanced technology, and the healing gel was working perfectly. The injury would be completely healed within a few days, but HFY knew that a physical wound was not the biggest problem. Kale needed to find his family, and he needed to find them soon. The longer the cub stayed away from his parents, the more traumatized he would become. She pulled up a communication screen and called her friend Jiho. Jiho was the station's chief communications officer, and he was brilliant at what he did. If anyone could help track down a missing Valtrax family, it would be him. Within minutes, Jiho arrived at the medical bay. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a calm presence that made everyone around him feel at ease. "So this is the little one you found," Jiho said, looking down at the sleeping cub. "He is smaller than I expected." "He is just a child," HFY replied. "Someone hurt him and his family. We need to find his parents before something worse happens." Jiho nodded. He understood what HFY was asking without her needing to explain further. He pulled up his own communication device and began to search the station's databases. "Do you know what his name is? That would be a good starting point." "He called himself Kale," HFY said, "but I do not know if that is his true name or just a simple sound. I do not speak Valtrax language well enough to be certain." Jiho's fingers flew across his screen, searching through thousands of records. The station kept detailed information about all the ships that arrived and departed. If a Valtrax family had been at the station recently, their names would be recorded somewhere. It took almost an hour, but finally, Jiho found something. "Here," he said, turning his screen so HFY could see. "The Velthus clan, They arrived at the station 3 days ago to conduct trade negotiations. According to the dock records, there was an incident. A rival merchant family attacked them during an exchange. The security report says that fighting broke out, and several people were separated in the chaos. Haiwan's heart sank. So Kale was separated from his family during the attack. Do we know what happened? Did his family escape? Their ship took off from the docking area about 2 hours after the attack, Jiho explained. The records show they left in a hurry, but there is no mention of them searching for anyone who might have been left behind. They probably did not know that Kale was missing. The two friends looked at each other. They both understood what needed to happen next. They had to find the Veltus clan and tell them that their family member was alive and safe, but finding a ship in space was not easy. The galaxy was enormous, and ships could travel to many different places. Even with advanced technology, searching for one specific vessel could take weeks or even months. They needed more information. What else do we know about them? Haiwan asked. Jiho continued reading the records. The Velthas clan are merchants. They travel between different stations and planets, buying and selling goods. According to their flight plan, they were headed toward the outer expanse, a region of space known for its mining colonies and trading posts. If I send out queries to the trading network, we might be able to figure out which station they would go to next. Haiwan felt hope rising in her chest. It was not a perfect plan, but it was something. It was a way forward. The next step was to get permission from the station commander. They walked together to the command center, where Commander Ra-Jin was reviewing reports about the attack that had separated Kale from his family. Ra-Jin was a serious man who followed rules and regulations carefully. He was not the type of commander who took risks or bent the rules for emotional reasons. Commander Ra-Jin, Haiwan said as she entered his office, we have found where the Valtrax family is headed. Jiho and I believe we can locate them and return their child. We need your permission to launch a retrieval mission. Ra-Jin looked up from his work. His expression was difficult to read. Haiwan, I understand that you have developed feelings for this creature, but we need to be careful here. Getting involved in Valtrax family matters could cause diplomatic problems. The Valtrax are proud, and they might see our involvement as interference. With respect, Commander, Haiwan said, her voice steady and calm, I believe the opposite is true. If we find their child and return him safely, they will see that humans care about justice and compassion. But if we do nothing, if we simply keep Kyle here and tell them we found him but refuse to help, that will damage our relationship with them forever. Ra-Jin was quiet for a long moment. Haiwan could see him thinking, weighing the risks and benefits of allowing the mission. Finally, he sighed and nodded. You may go, he said, but this is a small mission. You, Jiho, and a small team. You will travel quietly, make no aggressive moves, and you will follow my orders if things become dangerous. Understood? Understood, Commander, Haiwan said. Relief flooded through her. Over the next several days, Haiwan spent as much time as possible with Kale while she and Jiho prepared for the mission. The cub's wound was healing beautifully, and his fear was slowly fading. He began to eat better and even started playing with toys that Haiwan brought him. She taught him simple human words, and Kale responded with purring sounds and happy chirps. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing hour. Jiho watched this connection develop, and he documented it carefully. He recorded videos of Haiwan playing with Kale, of her feeding him, of her singing to him when he had nightmares about the attack that had separated him from his family. These videos were important, Jiho thought. They showed something that most people did not believe was possible. They showed that humans and aliens could truly care for each other, not out of duty or protocol, but out of genuine love and compassion. When the small ship was finally ready to depart, Haiwan said goodbye to Kyle. She told him they would find his parents soon, that his mother and father were looking for him, and that they would all be together again. Kale made a sad sound, and he clung to her, not wanting her to go. But Haywan promised she would return with good news. As the ship left Station Keffer and headed into the darkness of space, Haywan looked back at the station growing smaller behind them. She thought about the little blue cub waiting in the medical bay, and she felt a determination in her heart, unlike anything she had ever felt before. She would find his family. She would bring them together again. She would do whatever it took, no matter how difficult the journey might be. The journey into the outer expanse was nothing like Haywan expected. Space was supposed to be peaceful, empty, and quiet. But the outer expanse was full of danger. Debris fields floated in the darkness, remnants of destroyed ships and broken asteroids. Radiation storms appeared without warning, their violent energy shaking the small vessel. And there were raiders, groups of criminals and thieves who hunted merchant ships for their cargo. Haywan sat in the pilot's seat, her hands gripping the controls tightly as she navigated through a particularly dense field of space debris. Around the ship, pieces of metal and rock tumbled through the void. Some pieces were small, no bigger than a human fist. Others were enormous, the size of buildings. The ship had special shields that protected them from impact, but the constant bumping and shaking was nerve-wracking. "Incoming signal," Jiho called out from his communication station. "There is a merchant vessel ahead, broadcasting a distress call." Haywan did not hesitate. "Change course. We are going to help them." The ship moved toward the distress signal, and soon a damaged vessel came into view. It was a trade ship, similar to the one Haywan was piloting, but much larger and badly wounded. Explosions had torn holes in its hull, and fires burned inside the ship's exposed sections. The merchant vessel was dying, its systems failing one by one. "This is the merchant ship Blue Star," a desperate voice came through the communication system. "We have been attacked by raiders. Our shields are failing. We need immediate assistance." Haywan's team worked fast. They launched rescue pods toward the Blue Star and began pulling survivors from the damaged vessel. It was dangerous work. Any moment, the Blue Star could explode or break apart completely. But Haywan and her team did not care about the danger. There were lives at stake, and that was all that mattered. They managed to save 17 people before the Blue Star's engines suddenly failed. The ship began to fall, pulled by the gravity of a nearby asteroid. Within seconds, it collided with the massive rock and broke into pieces. The explosion was enormous, filling the space around them with fire and debris. "Everyone back to the ship!" Haywan shouted. "Hurry! The debris is coming!" Her team ran, carrying the survivors they had rescued. Haywan pushed the ship's engines to maximum power, racing away from the explosion just as pieces of the Blue Star came flying toward them. A large section of metal grazed their hull, creating a terrible screeching sound. Alarms blared inside the ship, warning them of damage. But they were safe. The survivors were safe. Haywan had a moment to breathe, to feel relieved that everyone had made it. Then her communications officer, Min Ki, called out from his station. "Commander, I am picking up 3 hostile ships approaching from behind. They are moving very fast." Haywan's heart sank. The raiders. They must have been following the merchant vessel, and now they had turned their attention to Haywan's small ship. This was bad. Very bad. A small rescue vessel like theirs was not designed for combat. They had no weapons, and their shields were weaker than those of a warship. They could not fight. Their only option was to run. "Full speed ahead," Haywan commanded. "Route power away from non-essential systems and push everything to the engines." The ship accelerated, racing through the debris field at dangerous speeds. Behind them, the raider ships pursued relentlessly. They fired weapons, sending energy blasts toward the rescue vessel. Some missed, but others hit. The ship shook violently with each impact. Systems began to fail. The lights flickered. The temperature inside began to rise. "Shields are down to 50%, Min Ki shouted. Hull integrity is failing. We need to do something. Ji-ho worked frantically at his station, trying to find a way out of this nightmare. There is a radiation storm ahead. If we can reach it, the energy readings might mask our position. The raiders will not be able to track us through it. Do it, Haewon said. She pushed the ship even faster, racing toward the glowing cloud of radioactive energy that swirled in the distance. Behind them, the raiders were getting closer. Their weapons fire was becoming more accurate. One shot hit the ship's power core, and suddenly everything went dark. Emergency lights came on, casting everything in a dim red glow. The ship was running on backup power now. It would not last long. Haewon, we are not going to make it, Minky said quietly. His voice was sad and frightened. The engines are failing. We cannot reach the storm. Haewon looked at the radiation storm, still far away. She looked at her crew, all of them working desperately to keep the ship alive. She looked at the survivors they had just rescued, huddling in the cargo area below, and she made a decision. Everyone listen to me, she said, her voice calm and clear despite the fear she felt inside. Ji-ho, I need you to lock all power to the life support system in the cargo area. Make sure our survivors have everything they need. What are you talking about? Ji-ho asked. He understood what she was saying, but he did not want to accept it. I am going to route all remaining power to the engines, Haewon explained. We will move faster. We will reach the storm. The survivors will be safe. But what about you? Minky asked. If you do that, the bridge will have no power. You will not be able to see where you are going. You will not be able to navigate. Then I will navigate by instinct, Haewon said. She reached out and touched the ship's controls, feeling the vibrations of the vessel around her. In her mind, she could see the radiation storm, could see the path through the debris field. She could see the way forward. With a few commands, she redirected the power. The bridge went dark, lit only by the strange glow of distant stars. But the engines roared to life with renewed strength. The ship accelerated forward, faster and faster, racing through the debris field like a bullet. Behind them, the raider ships tried to follow, but the wreckage was too dense. One by one, they fell back, unable to navigate the dangerous field without their instruments. Soon, they were out of range entirely. The rescue ship punched through the radiation storm, its shields protecting the occupants from the dangerous energy. Inside the dark bridge, Haewon held the controls steady, guiding her vessel through the chaos. She could not see anything, but she did not need to. She could feel the ship, could sense the way forward, could hear the rhythm of the universe guiding her through the darkness. When the ship finally emerged from the other side of the storm, it was damaged and weakened, but it was alive. The survivors in the cargo area were safe. Haewon's sacrifice had saved everyone aboard. As she slumped in her chair, exhausted and relieved, she made a silent promise to herself. She would continue forward. She would find Kale's family. She would never give up, no matter how difficult the journey became. The Veltha settlement was built into the side of a tall mountain on a small moon orbiting Velmar Prime. The structures were beautiful and complex, carved directly from the rock and decorated with intricate patterns that caught the light of the distant star. When Haewon's ship descended toward the surface, she saw Valtrax moving between the buildings, going about their daily lives. None of them seemed to notice the approaching human vessel, but they noticed quickly when Haewon sent her identification signal. Within minutes, armed Valtrax warriors were surrounding the landing pad, their weapons raised and ready for battle. This was what Haewon had feared most. The Valtrax were protective of their territory, and they did not trust outsiders easily. Ji-ho activated the communication system, broadcasting in the Valtrax language. This is the human exploration vessel requesting peaceful contact with the Velthas family. We have important news regarding a lost family member. There was a long moment of silence. Then a voice came through, speaking in the Valtrax language with a tone of authority and command. Jiho translated the words in real time for Haiwan's benefit. Identify yourself, human. Why do you come to our settlement? My name is Haiwan, she said, speaking directly into the communication system. 3 days ago, I found a young cub alone and injured. I have cared for him and protected him. The cub called himself Kale, and I believe he belongs to your family. Another long silence. Then the voice came again, and this time Jiho could hear emotion in it, a mixture of shock and desperate hope. You have our son? You have Kale? The cargo bay door opened, and Haiwan walked out with Kale in her arms. The cub's blue and silver fur shone in the light of the distant star. Kyle was awake and alert, looking around with curious eyes at this new place. The armed warriors lowered their weapons. They stood frozen, unable to move, unable to believe what they were seeing. Then a female Valtrax rushed forward, pushing through the group of warriors. Her fur was a lighter blue than Kyle's, and her eyes were wide with emotion. Behind her came a larger male Valtrax, his body covered in scars from many years of living and working. Haiwan recognized them immediately from the station records. This was Velsha, Kael's mother, and Tarndex, his father. Kael! Velsha cried out, her voice filled with so much love that Haiwan's heart nearly broke. My son! My beautiful son! Haiwan set the cub down gently, and Kyle immediately recognized the voices of his parents. He made a joyful sound, something between a purr and a roar, and bounded toward them on his 4 legs, limping slightly on the leg that had been injured but was now mostly healed. Velsha caught Kale in her arms and held him to her body, sobbing with relief and joy. Tarndex stood beside them, his large hand touching his son gently, unable to believe that his child had been returned to him. For a long moment they said nothing. They just held each other, a family reunited after being torn apart by violence and chance. Jiho began explaining what had happened in the Valtrax language, describing how Haiwan had found Kale in the cargo bay, how she had cared for his injury, how she had searched for his family across the galaxy. He told them about the attack by the raiders, about how Haiwan had sacrificed her own safety to protect the survivors they had rescued. He told them everything. Velsha and Tarndex listened to every word. When Jiho finished, they looked at Haiwan with new eyes. This human had done something that none of them would have expected. This human had shown their species more kindness and love than many of their own kind would have shown. Come, Tarndex said, his voice deep but kind. We must honor this human properly. You will be our guest. You will come to our settlement and celebrate with us. Haiwan was hesitant at first. The warriors still frightened her somewhat, and she was not sure how the rest of the Valtrax would react to having a human in their sacred settlement. But Jiho squeezed her hand encouragingly, and Kale looked back at her with joy in his eyes. The cub made a soft sound, almost like a question, almost like a plea for Haiwan to stay, so Haiwan agreed. The celebration that night was the most beautiful thing Haiwan had ever experienced. The entire Velthas clan gathered in a massive chamber carved deep into the mountain. Hundreds of Valtrax filled the space, their fur shimmering in the light of bioluminescent stones embedded in the walls. Musicians played instruments that created sounds both haunting and beautiful. Singers performed songs that told stories of love, loyalty, and family bonds that nothing could break. Velsha held Kale in her lap, never letting go of him even for a moment. Tarndex sat beside his mate, his hand on their son's head, still unable to fully believe that their child was alive and safe. Other family members came forward to meet Haiwan, to thank her, to honor her. An old female Valtrax, whom the others called Grandmother Veltren, approached Haiwan slowly. Her fur was silver with white stripes, and her eyes held the wisdom of many years of living. She looked at Haiwan for a long time, studying her carefully, reading something in her face that perhaps Haiwan herself did not fully understand. You love our Kale, the old female said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. Yes, Haywan replied honestly. I do. I love him very much. And you risked your own life to save him, Veltrin continued. You sacrificed comfort and safety for his sake. I would do anything for him, Haywan said. He is like a child to me. Veltrin nodded slowly. She reached out and touched Haywan's face with one of her powerful hands, her claws drawing softly across Haywan's skin. It was a gesture of respect, Haywan realized, a gesture of recognition and acceptance. In our culture, Veltrin said, there is an old tradition. When someone demonstrates such loyalty, such love, such willingness to sacrifice for family, they are considered to be part of that family. But first, the family must ask if they wish to remain part of the family forever. Haywan did not fully understand what the old female was saying, but she sensed that something important was about to happen. Around her, the other Valtrax had gone quiet. All eyes were focused on Haywan and Veltrin, and the young cub who was watching Haywan with hopeful eyes. Velsha and Tarndek stood, still holding Kale between them. They approached Haywan together, and Tarndek spoke in a voice that carried across the entire chamber. Haywan, human protector of our son, we wish to know something, Tarndek said, his words translated by Jiho. We wish to know if you would stay with us. If you would be Kale's guardian and elder sister. If you would become part of the Velthus family forever. Haywan's breath caught in her throat. She had not expected this. She had thought she would return Kale to his family and then go back to her life on the Artemis. But looking at the faces of this family, seeing the hope and love in their eyes, seeing Kale reaching toward her with his small hands, Haywan realized that her life had already changed completely. Haywan did not sleep that night. She lay in the comfortable room that the Velthas family had prepared for her, staring up at the ceiling carved from stone and adorned with glowing patterns. Her mind was racing with thoughts and questions. Could she really stay here? Could she really give up her life aboard the Artemis to become a guardian for an alien cub? Was it the right choice, or was it the result of emotion and temporary attachment? She rose before dawn and walked out onto a balcony overlooking the settlement. The landscape before her was alien, but beautiful. Unusual plants grew in the thin atmosphere, their shapes unlike anything found on Earth. The distant star was beginning to rise over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Everything about this place was different from home. And yet somehow, standing here, Haywan felt a sense of belonging she had never felt before. She heard footsteps behind her. Jiho appeared, also unable to sleep. He stood beside her without speaking for a long time, both of them watching the star rise. Finally, Jiho spoke quietly. You have to make a choice. I can see that you are struggling with it. You love Kale. But you also have a duty to the Artemis, to Commander Rajin, to your career. It is not an easy decision. What would you do? Haywan asked. Jiho smiled sadly. I am not you. I cannot answer that question for you. But I can tell you what I have seen. I have seen you interact with Kyle over these past days. I have recorded everything, and I have watched the footage many times. Haywan, the way you look at him, the way you care for him, that is not something temporary. That is real love, the kind of love that does not fade or change. Haywan turned to look at her friend. But if I stay here, what happens when Kyle grows up? What happens when he no longer needs me? What kind of life will I have? The same kind of life you would have anywhere, Jiho replied. You will have a life of love and purpose. That is enough for most people. That is enough for me. They stood together until the sun fully rose over the horizon. By the time they returned to the main hall of the settlement, Haywan had made her decision. It was not easy, and it would change everything about her future, but it was the right choice. She knew it in her heart. Tarndex and Velshaw were waiting for her answer. Kale was with them, the young cub still sleepy from the early morning, but alert when he saw Haywan. The cub made a happy sound and ran toward her as fast as his small legs would carry him. Haywan picked up Kale and held him close, feeling the warmth of his body, hearing the purring sound that meant he was content and happy. She knew then that she could not leave him. This cub had become part of her soul. "I will stay," she said, her voice strong and clear. "I will be Kale's guardian." "But I have a proposal." Tarndex's ears flicked forward with interest. "What is your proposal, Haywan?" "I cannot abandon my duty to humanity completely," Haywan explained. "But I also cannot abandon Kale, so I propose that I divide my time. I will spend most of my time here with Kale, raising him and teaching him about both our species. But I will also spend time aboard the Artemis, serving as an official liaison between humans and the Valtrax. This way, I can honor both my responsibilities." Velshaw and Tarndex looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them in the way that long-time mates can communicate without words. "This is acceptable," Tarndex said finally. "You will be our daughter and Kale's sister. You will have a home here, and you will always be welcome. This is the way of the Velthus family." The next day, Haywan sent a message to Commander Rajin explaining her situation. She expected resistance, expected him to refuse her proposal, to order her to return to the station immediately. But Commander Rajin was wiser than she had given him credit for. He saw the opportunity in her plan. A human liaison to the Valtrax could open doors that had been closed for generations. It could improve trade, strengthen relations, and create peace between the species. Within a week, Haywan's proposal was approved at the highest levels of human government. She would remain on the Velmar system as the official human representative, with the authority to negotiate treaties and agreements on behalf of human interests. She would also continue her work as a xenobiologist, studying the Valtrax people and sharing her knowledge with the scientific community. Over the following months, Haywan's life transformed completely. She learned the Valtrax language fluently, spoke with their leaders, participated in their ceremonies and traditions. Most importantly, she watched Kale grow and develop. The young cub learned quickly, picking up human words and concepts as easily as he learned Valtrax skills and knowledge. He became a bridge between the two species, comfortable in both worlds, respected by both. Other humans began to visit the Velta settlement. Scientists came to study the Valtrax people. Traders came to establish new business relationships. Diplomats came to negotiate agreements. Slowly, carefully, the barrier between humans and Valtrax began to break down. Where there had been suspicion and fear, there began to be understanding and respect. Haywan watched all of this happen, and she knew that it had started with one simple act of kindness. She had helped a lost cub, and in doing so, she had helped two entire species learn to coexist peacefully. Years passed. Kyle grew from a small cub into a young adult. He was taller than his mother, strong and intelligent, with his father's leadership qualities and his human guardian's compassion for all living beings. He had seen his mother sacrifice her entire life to raise him, and he had learned from her example the value of putting others' needs before your own. One day, Kale approached Haywan in the great chamber where she was reviewing trade documents with Tarndex. He stood tall and proud, and when he spoke, his voice was deep and confident. "Guardian Haywan," he said formally, "I have made a decision. I wish to become an ambassador like you. I wish to travel to the human worlds and learn about your people. I wish to build bridges between our species, just as you have done for me." Haywan felt tears of pride and love fill her eyes. She stood and embraced Kyle, this young Valtrax who had once been a frightened cub in a cargo bay. In saving him, she had not only saved one life, she had created the future. And in creating that future, Haiwan finally understood what she had been searching for all along. It was not a place, and it was not a position or a title. It was the knowledge that her life had meaning, that her choices had mattered, that she had changed the world for the better. She had found her purpose written in the stars, in the friendship between two species, in the love of a family that crossed the boundaries of worlds.